everybody for joining the webinar today as we're digging into how a security company should evaluate potential payroll solutions and how important payroll really is in this industry. Here today, we have Jaymi and Jason from security companies across the country. Actually, both are in the Minnesota area. Before we get into the discussion, Jaymi, maybe we'll toss it over to you for a brief intro about yourself, your guys' company, and a little bit about your guys' situation with payroll and workforce management.
Yeah, so I'm Jaymi Greseth. I work for Fairline LLC. We've been in business, wow, I think almost 10 years at this point. We've grown exponentially over the years in an industry when everything else was going under in 2020. We expanded and our volume increased exponentially. So that's been the biggest challenge overall over the last 4 years for us is when others were kind of subsiding, we just grew fast and furious. As far as what we do, we have various contracts throughout the state of Minnesota, and we have over 100 plus employees at this time on various levels, part-time, full-time, things like that. And as far as looking for opportunities, it's simplicity for our staffing is one of the biggest things with payroll and being able to make changes and adjustments on the fly.
100%. Well, congrats on all the growth. It's been awesome seeing how the company has grown. So Jason, maybe turn it over to you for a brief intro.
Jason Fellows, CEO, part owner for LincRo Security Solutions. We started this year, in January, really launched in March. We're sitting with about 25 employees and growing. My schedule is always constantly busy. Going into this, I've got about 20 years in the industry, so knowing that the number one thing that I wanted to see out of my company was paying the officers on time accurately so they didn't have to try to hunt me down, which I would say is a huge issue in a lot of companies, but I see that a lot in contracted security as well. Glad to be here and I appreciate the invite.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Jason, for joining. And yeah, congrats on starting up the business. And I think you guys will bring some unique perspectives from a company, that's been around for 10 years for a company that's been around less than a year, with your experience even before then. So excited for the conversation today. I'm Jordan Wallach. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Belfry, and we are building the modern workforce management solution, kind of an all-in-one platform for the security guard services industry. Belfry's done a lot of research across the last 3 years, talking to security companies, probably hundreds of them, and hundreds of folks, just understanding why payroll is so difficult, specifically in this industry. And I think if you guys know it day to day, but there's a lot of specifics that, maybe some payroll platforms that have been around a while don't ultimately understand, like the specificities of how security companies might, bid different contracts at different rates, for instance, and, pay rates as a result are different, or building matrices across your team, or pay rates that might change on a moment's notice if you need to incentivize someone to fill a shift. So we'll get into a little bit of that and, ultimately how that makes your guys' day-to-day more complex, but also, what solutions like ultimately might you need to solve those problems. Why is payroll such a important piece in running your business?
I think there's two sides of it. The number one and the most important is you can hire the best person for the job, the best employee that you can find. But if you don't pay them, they will not continue to show up. So the number one is making sure that there's a payroll system in place that allows me to pay them accurately while billing the customer accurately and making sure that they get paid on time. The second part of that is it's easier for me to use a system for payroll and billing than writing a check out to every employee or handwriting it. So does it benefit me more than my employees getting paid and using a payroll system? I feel yes, but they would also say that it benefits them more than it benefits me. So it's just making sure that the employees are happy, because if you don't have happy employees, you're not going to be successful.
Right. Davey, I guess same question to you. Why is payroll so important, and how has it, made such an impact on these operations?
To follow up on Jason's point, this industry is very interesting in that there are companies that don't get payroll out on in a timely manner. And we find that with people that even come to apply with us, their first question, even in an interview process, is how do I get paid? When am I getting paid? Do I have to wait for a contract to end to get paid? Because they've dealt with times they haven't gotten paid, and as far as, a system that is up to date, direct deposit, they know exactly what day they're getting paid, they know when they're going to get paid, is such a big relief for them, because we're dealing with people that they're feeding their families off of this income, and they are making a living, and they need to know that that paycheck is going to come in there. The old systems, they'd send out a hard copied check and lost in the mail, and the next thing you know, it comes 3 days later, and they're asking us to reissue them a check because they've got bills to pay, and it's completely understandable. I think everybody's been to that point where you're, living paycheck to paycheck, and you're just trying to make ends meet, and it's 3 days later than you expect. So payroll for us is huge, and making sure that it's accurate, and making sure, like you stated earlier, the rates are different for different contracts. The sites are different. People based on experience levels are paid different. And, sometimes you move somebody to an account that they normally don't work. So are they getting paid the right rate to work that account that they should be based on their experience versus the contract, things like that. And so that's, payroll in general, just everybody needs their paycheck, and employees particularly are really cognizant of it. We have them even come in other times and go, I can't believe that I'm actually going to get paid this week on time. And for us, it's a no-brainer, because I wouldn't want to work and not get paid. So it just makes sense.
100%. How have you maybe talked about that through your interview process or your recruiting process? Like, how much does that make an impact for your ability to hire, or conversion rates in your recruiting funnel, for instance?
Well, and yeah, we, with your system, we're able to put in documentation on when pay is actually going to be showing up and when they're going to get it. So with the documentation in the, the Belfry system, but we're able to actually outline, these are your exact pay dates. This is when you're going to get paid. You're going to start on this date. This is when the payroll is. And I mean, like I said, I'm actually shocked most of the time that people are surprised where they're actually going to get paid accurately and consistently week to week, or we're a bi-weekly company, and it's one of the things that they want to know, that they're going to get it in their checking account, that they're going to get that, and it's one of the first questions they ask. And then also with your guys' system, they can change their deductions and change those things on their own as they're, changing life plans, and they add a baby to their family, or they things like that, or getting through their family situations. I think that that's been a huge factor too, that they're able to have some control in that, which sometimes it's got to go through a middleman in order for them to make that adjustment, versus actually just being able to do it themselves.
100%. Jason, maybe to you, similar question, but how do you talk about payroll both in your recruiting process, but then in employee retention? We know, like, in this industry, employee retention, turnover rates could be at most like 80%, 100% year over year at a lot of companies. When you're setting up your company for success from the beginning, what kinds of strategies have you taken it?
This company's for my employees. My number one client is going to be my employees, and I think that helps with the retention. In the interviewing process, when they ask about pay, a lot like Jaymi, we are bi-weekly. And then the moment I say, oh, we are strictly direct deposit, or we can help you with it, their eyes brighten up and they're like, when can we start? It shocks me on how many other companies that are out there that still use paper checks, or still, you have to go to the office and collect that. Like, the employees are just thriving. They're like, wait, so I don't have to come into the office and get a check. I don't have to check my mailbox 3 or 4. We've all been there where we're checking over and over. So the moment you say, nope, it's direct deposit, you'll see your paycheck every other Friday. They're instantly like, okay, where do you want me to work? When do you want me to start? So the interview process is fantastic, because that's a huge thing, because we're looking for people, but they're also looking for that right fit of a job. So with that, I think of it as a benefit, which I don't think it should be a benefit. I think it should be the normal. But with the system that we're using, your system, they actually, like James said, can go into the system. They can look at their pay. They can look at what they're being deducted. They can see when they're going to get paid. They have their stubs, so it makes it a lot easier. And then the retention is there as well. They're not worried about, and Jaymi hit on that as well. As we're interviewing people, the same pool of people that are like, yep, the last company I was with, I had to fight to find a paycheck. I had to go over this way and this way. The retention is there because they don't want to leave somewhere where they know they're getting paid, even if the contract is not paying. And we're paying, and then we're going to the clients and getting our money. We both companies have set us up for success to where we're not waiting for a contract to get paid. And I think that goes into also the onboarding and the retention of, they know, okay, I'm still working 80 hours in the next 2 weeks. I'm getting paid, even though LincRo or Fairline hasn't gotten paid. I know that's happening. So I think that goes the retention and just the transparency of the system.
Awesome to hear it. Well, maybe let's rewind a little bit. Take me, back through what payroll might have been like, before for your guys' companies. What were some of the challenges that you guys were facing in your day-to-day when we talk about all the different complexities, starting with, scheduling, time and attendance, leading into payroll? What were some of the hardest challenges, and how did that impact your business? Maybe Jaymi, we'll kick off with you.
So, going back, we've had a few different scheduling systems, a few different payroll systems, and I think part of our issues were a scheduling system worked well, but it didn't integrate well with a large payroll company. And if you needed to fix things or make adjustments, you would have to delete a whole entire process, pull it back in, redo things, send it back over, back and forth. And it was time consuming in regards to that. We would, utilize our biggest issues too, is once you'd send it over for processing, if you caught something and there was an error, getting somebody to look at it and help you figure it out took days. And it was something that, hey, how could we do this? And then if it was something we needed to fix, then you were having to submit a secondary payroll. They would be charging fees for that. And it was this consistent cycle of lack of service when all we wanted to try to do was get our employees paid. And that's the number one thing before I'm with Jason on that. Anything else is getting them paid. And when we're dealing with these other companies, we were a customer to them that they felt like they didn't care about a lot of the times. And well, sorry, you made a mistake. Sorry, it's your fault. I get it. We're all going to make mistakes, but I'm looking for a partner and somebody that's going to help us through that tough hardship. And I believe when we, landed with you, I think we'd been through 4 through the last 10 years. And obviously when people start out, 10 plus years ago, there's more manual checks. There was more that direct deposit was, everyone had some form of it, but people were sketchy and leery of it, right? And so things have progressed. And what I saw was some of these payroll companies weren't progressing with the times. They weren't forward thinking. And, then we were also dealing with people that had to look at a schedule in one system and then all their payroll stuff in another 2 systems. Sometimes the processing back and forth was just simple.
I hear you. So I'm hearing 2 things. It's like the first one is just a lot of time spent having to manage, the scheduling to time and attendance to payroll process that, if there were inconsistencies, it was on you to basically go through an onerous process to correct those inconsistencies before processing payroll. And then I heard service, right? Ensuring that, obviously payroll is the most important thing in this business, ensuring that you get quick responses from your payroll partner so that you can get folks, paid accurately and on time. I think the first part is so real because Jaymi, we've had a few conversations. You probably work a million jobs like many other security company owners.
Right, yeah, the multiple hats.
Exactly. So yeah, like what did that time spent ultimately result in, for you having to, consolidate data or ingest and import data across multiple platforms? What fell by the wayside as a result with the previous systems?
So for me, I mean, I would literally have to block out a minimum of one full day, 8 hour day. Well, let's be real, I work more than 8 hours a day, um, but I mean, it was blocking out a full day to review and fine tooth comb everybody's um, pay rate, everybody's bill rate, everybody's things like that. And during certain times I wasn't able to support my team if they needed help or needed assistance, if we were getting a new account that needed somebody to touch. I couldn't stop what I was doing with payroll in order to do some of those other things. So it also meant when I was done with that for the day, I would still have to do some of those things, and the time it just took. And then there were days where sometimes with a holiday added in there where you're paying extra time and a half or however you're going to pay, um, if you didn't check the right box, it wouldn't calculate it properly. We had some shift differentials. If you missed it on one account, you had to double check to make sure that it was there. And so it was just sometimes it would take 2 full days to just make sure everything was accurate because it was always something, and you couldn't just click in to something. You couldn't just fix it here and it would fix everything. And it just, the time, like I said, on payroll weeks, it was a minimum one full day for sure, sometimes two, and then it just meant everything else I couldn't support.
I hear you. Yeah, that's you ultimately, like, if you're spending more time there, that means something else is not being spent, and oftentimes that's like taking care of your team or being out in the field or addressing another scheduling issue, or we hear a lot of times just being in front of your clients, right?
Right.
Operations managers across the country so much get bogged down in like the back office support and like running payroll, just handling software systems, right? Where like you guys are the face of the business, and any incremental 5-15 minutes you can spend with a client means they're going to be happier. You can maybe even win new contracts, right? So that resonates for sure. Jason, similar story for you guys.
Yeah, as I say, I started this year, and so with my experience, I knew that there's programs out there. Um, I was not in a position to be like, "Yep, I'm going to take this, Cadillac, this Mercedes Benz, program, throw it in there, and I'm fine." I had to find the budget-friendly systems. I had to create an app or a folder on my phone for the multiple apps that I had for scheduling, invoicing, reports, payroll, stuff like that. I knew that I had to have direct deposit, so that was the first thing that I set up. Um, what I didn't know was how much time it would take with just a payroll system um, that just does payroll. Because I'm like, oh, this should be easy. No, I have to look at the timesheets. How do they clock in? How do they clock out? So I was doing a lot of manual labor at the beginning with apps, right? You wouldn't have thought that with an app you'd have so much manual labor, but I was doing that. I was taking the timesheets, putting the time in, making sure that the taxes were accurate. And like Jaymi said, like a lot of these companies are like, great, we signed you. Here's 20 minutes of how it's used. Let us know, and we'll queue you up if you have any issues. So we went through those pains of, oh, we forgot to add these hours to somebody. Well, that's going to be $150 fee. I'm like, but the check is like $80, and like, well, sorry. And then I'm, spending all of that time in the back office trying to figure out how to make it run smoothly with multiple apps, multiple time, taken away from my team, growing the business. And then, it goes back to the officers as well. We would hire somebody and be like, yep, you need to download this app, and this app. You log into this one to see your money. You log into this one for instant reports, and you log into this one for your timekeeping. Make sure you do all of those. And then, you get it all set up and like, what's my password for this? I'm like, I don't know. So it's a lot of eaten time of, holding the hands when I created the problem with the multiple, websites or apps that they had to use because I needed to get it done as soon as possible. So the growing pain is there for a new startup security company trying to figure out payroll. It's there because either you're like, here's the $1 million a year contract to get my payroll well, or here's the $20 a person kind of deal where I can just hopefully make it work. So it's a lot of stuff that goes into it. but finally getting a program that really consolidates everything into one has really it frees us up as managers. And I know, Jaymi, you went through it, 8, 10, 12 hours, the calls at night. You're like, did I do that? And you're trying to think, oh crap, I have to do another thing. Well, that's going to be another 20, 30, $40, fee or penalty. And I thought to myself, why am I getting penalized for these that I understand there's a mistake, but why is it so expensive? Or why did it take this long for me to get this answered, 3 to 5 days later? So
Ultimately, what are you looking for? You alluded to it a little bit, but
I'll jump in. So I knew I had to get stuff. I knew how I wanted to run the company. I knew I needed, and I know we're talking about payroll, but I knew that there's systems. There had to be a system out there that combined everything that I needed into one app. So I put my feet into the shoes of my officers. How can we benefit, or what can we do to make it just one login, one little app? That's all I need. So yes, I was searching. I've heard I heard of Belfry, and I was like, I don't know. I feel like that might be out of the range of what my company could be doing. So I always keep my options open, and then I can't remember how I got into contact with Belfry, but I did, and I was like, you know what, fine, hit me with it, sell me with it, sold me with it. And I'm like, what are the numbers? And I was shocked. I was like, where do you want me to sign? So I was in the market. I didn't, you know, I didn't know who to reach out to. I knew the big players, the big companies. I didn't know, what else was out there that was very beneficial, and I'm glad I found you guys. So
awesome. Jaymi, were you guys looking in the market? What were you looking for most?
Well, I mean, and Jordan, my whole backstory because we've talked a lot about this. And at the time when you guys approached us, we really weren't completely looking. I mean, in all transparency, prior to that, we had moved from 3 different systems. Like Jason said, that's, what you had. You had 3 different systems, and we had found a system that moved us down to 2. And we could live with that. It was, the system had the schedule and the reporting tool, and then the other system had the payroll tool. And I'm like, well, that made sense. And they integrated well with one another. There wasn't a problem in regards to overall that. It was within that year, right before we moved with you guys, that they were getting bought out and integrating with some other systems. And there was a lot of flaws in their integrations, in their processes. We were going from backwards with them. We went from 3 systems, and we were to 2, to all of a sudden now we were going back to 3 again, but it was supposed to be better. And I didn't like it. And then we, at the time, we were really busy building some accounts, doing some things in the timeline. And when I met with your sales rep, I liked the concept. But I was just getting burned with these other companies that hesitance, right? I mean, there was a lot of hesitancy with that. And I think what happened is there was a final payroll, and it was just messed up. And I kind of lost it, I'll be honest. And I think that's when I reached out and I said, get me over. How soon can you do this? We've talked about this. You've made these promises. And just for full disclosure, and Jordan knows this, but Jason doesn't, I have somewhat, I know enough to be dangerous in the IT world. And so I was throwing questions at Jordan and his team left and right. Can you do this? What can you do this? Can you do this? Why can we do this? And they answered the questions, and I said, that's it, let's move and be done. And it was, once that decision was made, we went fast and furious, because I said, I got to get out of this. I can't do this anymore. My time was being taken up. My team's time was being taken up, because with the other 3 systems that you have, our employees had questions, back to Jason's point, different logins. My login for this one is this, my login for this one is that. I don't know my password. Well, we can't reset your password. You have to do it yourself. Well, I don't remember which email I used for it. And it was all of that. And Belfry said, look, we've got a reporting tool, we've got a scheduling tool, and we have a payroll tool all in one. We can do this. And like I said, I drilled them pretty hard about all of those questions, and we moved over, and it's been honestly pretty spectacular since.
Awesome. Well, yeah, switching payroll is a tough thing, right? Like it's there are tax compliance issues, importing data like within a calendar year if you could use this previous system. It's tricky, and I hear a ton of stories of folks who've made the switch before and then are left with IRS penalties because the system didn't handle the implementation right. What was that sort of process? Do you guys have concerns about that? What was that process in making the move over?
I think I obviously had tax concerns because we actually had that problem. I don't think I've disclosed that with you, but we did have that problem when we transitioned between two companies. The one company pulled the taxes but never paid it. And then the other company never did anything either. And all of a sudden we're sitting there, our CPA is getting, the letter that says, hey, by the way, you owe this. And there was about $40,000 sitting out there that one company had but never released, and another company didn't have, but they did our processing. So obviously that was some big concerns about, are we gonna have the same problem? And you guys set it up right and had somebody that said, I'm checking this, I'm monitoring this, I'm making sure we've got to do this. And that was huge because in the transitions with other places, they weren't doing that. It was really like you felt like you didn't matter. And that was huge as far as us in that, making sure, we would have situations where we would submit a payroll and then need to make a change. So you would delete that payroll, before the whole processing, delete it, and then you'd resubmit it, and somebody would be in error because they're like, well, you redid it, so it didn't calculate. What? I shouldn't have. All the data didn't change. I just had to change one person. And that's one thing with you guys is if I have a payroll and I send it over and I need to make a change on it, I can delete it, and all of the data that was still there is still pulls back in exactly the way it should. And so I had situations where somebody didn't get taxes taken out at all because I had redone the payroll, and I go, I didn't even touch that person. So why did that affect their payroll? And we dealt with that a lot with a couple different companies. So that's been such a huge blessing to not have to worry about that.
What have been maybe the couple biggest features that have been most helpful to your guys' business? Jason, maybe we'll start with you.
My background with contracted security, I used one of the biggest companies in the security industry where you put a person's name into the system and it's everything: HR, it's tracking, it's scheduling, it's payroll, it's taxes, it's bonuses, it's all that stuff. That's literally what you guys offered. That's literally what I've gotten. So, we can say payroll is its own entity, but with contracted security, the human resources part of it, the scheduling, the invoicing, that I consider all that, it's all integrated as payroll. And to have one program where I can enter somebody into the system for an 8-hour shift and it tells me how much I'm paying them, which invoice is that going to go to, when are they going to get paid, having that all at my fingertips, having the ability to educate not only myself but the other managers that I have or an employee, it's really made my time, it's reduced my time from focusing on payroll, human resources, scheduling, to bare minimum, and it's working out a lot better than I anticipated, and it's given me a lot more time to actually focus on what my employees are looking for, what my clients need, and how we are executing. So the time I've gotten back, that's probably the biggest shock and the surprise to me with transitioning from the 3 to 5 apps over to Belfry, of knowing I have everything I ever need in this system. And I spoke with one of my vice presidents here as well, as and he's well versed in the large companies as well. And I was like, so if we get to, a $16 million company, are we switching away from Belfry? And he said, absolutely not. Why would we ever, so I strongly believe that what we've seen from this program and this system and what you guys are doing and continue to do, we're never leaving. You're going to have to force us to leave, just because of the positivity, the support from you guys, and just the willingness to hear us and change. It's a package that I just love and won't get away from. So thank you.
Jaymi, I think we've had conversations around rate management and having that automate and calculate within the system. And what's been maybe the biggest time savers, the most impactful features for Fairline?
Well, I mean, and it's not necessarily related to payroll, but I do the invoice. I still invoice out of QuickBooks, I'll be honest with you, and that's just because CPA type stuff, but I'm able to generate the hours in the invoicing section within Belfry, and they are consistent, they match up, they're easy. And so all I have to do is print those out and data entry, and put that into my other, and I can zip those out. Eventually I would love to be able to just do it all out of here, but I understand that not everyone's quite on the same page. So we'll see how this goes, but being able to look at this, make sure everything matches up, make sure the hours billed are in there, making sure the employee, sometimes this is how I catch when there's an accidental override with an employee, right? For example, they work a weird shift and they're supposed to be on an 8-hour shift and it shows they work 24 hours. I'm able to catch it in an invoice and go back in and go, oh, they just accidentally put the 25th instead of the 24th. That functionality and time saving on that alone, I can print those invoices, I print them out. I also know what my employees were doing. Did I miss something on their pay in regards to when I look at those invoices? Like, wait a minute, I know that this particular client is an 84 hours a week. That's how much we're going to bill, but I'm only showing 78. Did I miss 4 hours on an employee? Whether they had an issue clocking in or clocking out that day, or forgot to clock in or clock out, and it got documented wrong. Some of that functionality has been fantastic and super easy. I'm not having to build, I used to have to build a spreadsheet, an Excel sheet for every single client. You used to download it, you had to compare it, and you couldn't just edit it and go back in. You're like, why does this not match up? Belfry pulls it up. They pull what the bill rate is, they pull who the employees are that are scheduled there, they pull their time. It's insane. This week's a short week for us because we do our payroll on Monday, so we've got to submit our payroll this week. I was able to get all of my invoices done and all my payroll done yesterday. I mean, I spent a few extra hours in the office, but I was able to actually get it all done with a lot of confidence going into today, going, okay, I just need to tweak payroll and it's ready for Wednesday on submission. That's huge. And that's the time, consuming. It's not time consuming anymore when I'm able to do that. Because once I submit on Wednesday, I don't have to worry about anything for payroll invoices the rest of the week, right? And so that just opens up all of my time to anything that needs to be done in the office, because like you said, is wearing many hats. But that's been another functionality of the system that's been fantastic.
The amount of time savings, like saving the import export process, the confidence, like that's one piece that I'm surprised to hear, but the confidence that you have that the calculations are going to be accurate, which means you don't have to worry, and then you don't have the impact of folks getting paychecks that are inaccurate, right? Which have so many more downstream effects to potential turnover, right? I think that's almost like an intangible piece that it contributes to. And then just the officer experience, right? I think, maybe Jason, you're hiring, a good amount in a short amount of time. One piece that I've heard Belfry makes really easy, and you've said it's one app for everything. What's been like that onboarding process like for you, maybe compared to how you might have had it at previous companies?
Previously, it was, an hour. We'd have to sit with an employee for an hour, say, here's this. How we started was, a couple days, like, oh, yeah, you need to do this now. Now with Belfry, it's like the employee comes in, I say, okay, because I've used this system because I want to make sure I understand it. I make up a training shift for them. And I'm like, this is how you look at it. Here's where you click. Here's your reports. Here's how you do patrols. 20 minutes. it literally takes 20 minutes. It's one app, and I say, this is your home. This is, and you own your paycheck. Each shift shows them how much they're getting paid for the shift. Uh, the program shows them when their next schedule is. They can do the time off request. They can. It's relatively quick. The onboarding is, and they're just like, wait, we're done. I'm like, yep, this is the app. It's very self-explanatory. It's very easy to use. If you have questions, let me know. And since then, we rarely, if I can't remember a question that we've gotten from an employee that just downloads the app and starts using it. It's that simple.
Last question for you guys. I mean, you've kind of seen this before and after picture. A lot of companies out there, across the US that are probably in a similar boat to what you were at, 6 months, a year ago, 2 years ago. What advice would you have for those folks, those operations managers, those company owners that might be going through some challenges right now and managing payroll? What advice would you have for them about what to look for?
I would say don't worry about changing. I jumped from 3 different systems into Belfry into one system, and I think it was within 2 weeks. Now, yes, I'm small and we're growing, but we still at that time had 17, 16 employees when we transitioned. It's not as tedious as it may seem. I think Belfry has really improved how the transitions come over and moving that over. It's asking the question. I heard of Belfry. I was like, it seems expensive, but to me, it's not. So it's actually getting in front of you. So I would say don't hesitate to reach out and contact and get that demo. Because I put it off. I seriously did. Because I was like, I'm not ready for that. But within 20 minutes of seeing it, I was like, I have to have this. I did still care about the cost, but I was worried. I was like, all right, now hit me where it hurts. And then when I got the numbers, I was like, oh, well, what else can we do? So it's just getting there and looking at the product, and I think as a new entrepreneur, new business starting, it is kind of like, I already signed up. I have one. I'm good. Um, and that's where, I was like, no, you take a look at it. It saves time, and that you just have to dive into it and see what it is. So,
yeah, Jaymi.
I was gonna say, from my perspective, obviously, we're a bit larger, and my hesitation was more so is every other company we'd worked with, I had, or someone on my team had, to build the spreadsheet, put in our data, input it. We had to do all of that work. It was like, we'll come to our systems, but you need to provide all of this data for us to implement, and or we'll put it in there, but you need to edit everything. We had a lot of that with the different companies we've transitioned with. It was, well, you pull the data from here, you pull this from here, we'll upload it, but then you need to make sure that it's fixed. And with you guys said, here's the spreadsheets. We're going to go into your systems and we're going to pull what we need. We're going to give you spreadsheets that show what we did. We're going to walk you through everything. And that was refreshing. It made it super easy. And, Jason's like, well, we were small and we did it in 2 weeks. We were larger and we did it in 2 weeks. So that is how great this system, how hard, Jordan, you and your team have worked to make something that transitions, because I had my admin staff able to train our entire team in within 2 weeks of, hey, we are starting a new payroll system, we're starting a new reporting system, we're starting this new system. And they did 2-week trainings, had every single one of our employees, this is what it's going to look like, this is how it's going to go. And we had our youngest 18-year-old to our oldest 70-year-old employee able to download and be a part of Belfry. And that was, quite honestly, amazing. And so if anyone that you are trying to convince them, and I'd be open to have them even have those conversations. It was so smooth. We were able to move everything. We were able to pull in everything. It was accurate. And if something wasn't right, it wasn't for us to fix. It was, hey, what is missing? What is not right? What can we do to make it right? That was huge in this transition. It's also been huge for us as proponents of people that we work with get this system. We tell people to get the system. We love the fact that it is all in one spot, and that at the end of the day, even, like, I'll be honest, we had some concerns with the new customer service because you guys got big, right? It was more one-on-one, and we had that, but they're still responding in a timely manner. I can set up phone calls still if there's something that it doesn't make sense in a response. All of that is huge and played a key factor on me promoting it, us staying with it, it makes sense. There's nothing in here at this point that doesn't make sense to not use Belfry for security companies in general. When you have payroll, you have scheduling, and you have reporting all in one system, all in one tool, we're able to set things up so our incident reports that Jason had talked about before, we can have those directly sent to us so we can see them on our phone. So if somebody's got an incident, we're already aware of it before the client, so we can prepare them. That's been huge too, is having something where we're ahead of what the client is going to receive has been a key. It's so key and impactful because we won't want them to find out before we do. And that has been a huge factor in everything that we're able to do with Belfry is we know about it and we're able to tell them what happened on a site or on an account. We're able to, our employees, I'll be honest, today I had one of my employees reach out because we had closed out timesheets, right? He goes, hey, I left at this time and it was inaccurate in the system, and it was just a keying error, right? We did 1509 instead of 1609, and he was able to see it before I process it today. And I said, okay, I can get that fixed for you. All of those factors have just made it, people trust, our employees trust us, our clients are trusting us, and the team overall is trusting the system.
Well, that's great to hear. Thank you guys so much for the time today. It's been really insightful. Just talk a little bit about what we can do to bring the industry forward and help make as successful companies across the country as LincRo and Fairline. So thank you guys so much for your insights, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Jordan. Thanks, Jason.